everyone. Welcome to the Hard Talk podcast, where we turn hard talks into hard talks. I am your host, one of your hosts, Brandon Daniels.
Yeah, he wants to be the main host, apparently.
And I'm here with my co-host.
Yes, baby. Tia.
Sorry, everyone. We have our son who is, doesn't care that we're recording at all.
He doesn't, and he hasn't had a nap today, so excuse him in all his aspects right now.
He just do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
So, before we get started, we first we want to say, I know it's been a while since you guys seen us.
Yes.
It's just been a lot going on.
Well, not necessarily in our lives, but in the country.
In the country's lives.
Yes.
And so we just been trying to, maintain through all of this, but we are so glad to be back. And while we are back, we have a special episode today, don't we?
You see, there's somebody else right here. Look at that. You see this person? There is a person.
This is our first. So let me give an intro, because we got to make sure we build this up. Okay,
it's only fair.
It's only fair. So the person that is on with us, I met this young man.
He ain't no young man. Look at him.
I met this young man, old like an old wooden sheep.
I knew it. I wanted to be the first one to say
I
it.
know you. Oh my God. All right, so I met this guy back in 2013, I believe. We both applied. It was a seasonal job. Okay, go watch it then, man. We both were applying for a seasonal job at Brookstone. Met this guy. When I tell you, when we met, I mean, we just instantly hit it off. I mean, first of all, we both were Bengals fans, and that was, that just melted everything, together. And then we both were just all Cincinnati, and then we had pretty much the same, like we agreed with pretty much all the same views that we had. So it was just like, this is my dude. So I think that what it is this guy, I mean, he invited me into his home. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, this guy. So this guy is he's a graduate of Wright State University. He resides still in Dayton, correct?
Yep. Beaver Creek. Suburb of Dayton. Yep.
Yeah.
Dayton.
I want you to introduce Connor Murphy to the Heart Talk podcast, our first guest.
He can't even say the name of the podcast right.
Welcome, Connor Murphy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited.
We're so excited. We with everything that's been going on with, the world, from racial injustice and just everything bad that's been going on, me and Tia wanted to, create some content that would kind of shed some light from different views. Of course we have our view, because we're African American, we're in this thing, we're black, we feel it and all this other type of stuff. But I believe that, and I always believe that, we're powerful as black people, but we're even more powerful all together.
Yeah.
And I am an advocate of making sure that we bridge the gap to bring all of us together. And I wanted to bring my boy Connor on, because I wanted to get his view on what's been going on in the world, and just from his lens. So that's why he's here, and we're just gonna flow. So you guys just follow us. We're gonna follow him, and we're just gonna flow.
Sounds good, man.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get it. So
I might be eating something, y'all. I just got done working out. My cheeks are red.
Jesus.
Fruit.
She still looks better than Brandon.
Oh!
Why I'm here.
He's always been doing this, like ever since we met. All right, so the first question, man, is first of all, again, welcome. Thank you for coming to our podcast. I want to ask you, do you want to say? Okay, I guess I can save that to the end. Tell us about yourself, like from like who you are, what you represent, and your view. Just like a brief thing of your views, how you of everything going on right now in the world.
Well, I mean that's a lot, man. I mean, as far as what's going on right now, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And as far as myself though, like I have to break this down because it's just so complex.
Okay.
But for myself, I work in computers, IT as of now. I grew up in the suburbs, like a working class. I grew up in Huber Heights, Ohio, which is more of like a working class kind of melting pot, really. Kind of mirrors the demographics of America in a lot of ways. So, in my family, my dad's side were strict working class. Like, they were poor growing up for the most part, 6 kids. His dad wasn't. He worked a lot, single parent. His parents got divorced. So the 3 boys went with the dad. 3 girls went with the mom when they got divorced.
Yeah.
And my dad was kind of like the surrogate father for his brothers when the dad was working, because his mom was, it was just kind of messy. So he grew up fast and didn't have a lot growing up, but he worked hard. He would join the Navy. Just he didn't know what he wanted to do, and he met my mom and got more grounded, and that helped him. But I give credit to my parents a lot, to be honest. That's why I'm bringing them up, because I wouldn't be the person I am today without my parents.
Oh, wow.
But I kind of feel like my upbringing, I straddled the fence a little bit. Like, I had a lot of my family that was working class, strict working class, didn't have college degrees, you know what I mean? Like, and then my mom, her mom got remarried to someone with a little more affluence. But as far as my biological family, we didn't have like a lot, you know what I mean? Like, we were like, not poor, but we were just middle class, pure and simple.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I saw a lot, because I saw like the side of America that a lot of people don't get to see, which is a little more wealth. I saw that through my step grandfather's family, and then I had my own family that was not like that. So seeing both sides, there's a big difference for sure. And for me, like growing up,
the major difference between that?
The mentality is different. The mentality, it's and I don't want to. I'm not speaking poorly of anyone, but it's just the mentality is there's more of, when I like growing up, it was just, I took it all in and I didn't really think too much about it. I was just like, I had friends that of all different colors and creeds and all that kind of stuff. And like, again, like the neighborhood I grew up in was like, it really mirrored the demographics of America. So in general, so I think that's a big thing for me, because growing up, it was like, I didn't think twice about anything like that. You know what I mean? Granted, I had that privilege to not have to think about it. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, like, it didn't factor into any of my relationships with people. You know what I'm saying? And, but as far as the difference, going back to that real quick, just, I guess more of like expectant, if that makes sense.
Okay.
They expected certain things that I wasn't used to. And it's like, oh, like they're accustomed to that. You know what I'm saying? And it was just kind of like a learning point for me. So exposed to both sides, really, as I like to say it.
Okay.
Kind of straddling that fence, like I said.
Okay. And then, so once you got to the point where, I guess, because you said where Huber Heights was more of a melting pot, correct?
Yeah, it's definitely like that. Definitely like more of a working class. For instance, I remember growing up, and I went to a Catholic school, and so we played Catholic schools from all over the Dayton area. And there's down south, more like Centerville, Kettering. It's a little more affluent than Huber Heights. And I remember their parents thought we were beating them real bad because we had a pretty good baseball team. And they started calling us Hubrier Heights, which is like a derogatory, like trashy, like Briar's like trashy, like, oh, you're poor and trashy, like you're from Hubrier Heights kind of thing.
Wow.
So it kind of like, but that's coming from people from a wealthier part of town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So while we didn't like want for anything, like as far as we didn't go hungry. We had plenty of stuff. Like we had everything we could want, and we thought we had it great.
Mm-hmm.
But there were people around you that thought they were better. They had that expectant attitude of, oh, I'm superior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did perceive that
Yeah.
in some people for sure.
And
just
so
from
like,
being where I was.
okay, so that kind of makes sense. Because when I met you, your dad from what you invited me into the house where your parents were, your dad had reached the pinnacle of, wealthy. Am I wrong? Am I in the ballpark of that?
So again, they lived in Huber Heights still. And so it's a nice house. I mean, don't get me wrong, they had a nice house. My dad had been a Honda for over 20 years at that point. So, he climbed up salary wise and stayed there for a while. But, that house, I mean, just to put it in dollar amounts, would be worth a lot more, almost double, in that south area of town I was telling you about. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So because the school districts, a lot in Ohio has to do with the school district and the property tax.
Yeah.
And so, like, for instance, if you're like in Dayton, like Oakwood is like the premier neighborhood. They have the best public schools. Their property taxes are outrageous.
Right.
And so Oakwood, Centerville, Kettering, Beaver Creek, those are the more affluent suburbs of Dayton.
Affluent, when you say affluent, for our listeners out there, affluent, what do you mean by affluent? I know
wealthy.
what you mean, but
right. Well, wealthy.
Okay.
Of means.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. Is it predominantly white in those areas?
I would definitely say Centerville's probably the most mixed.
Okay.
But it's just a bigger area, so that just makes sense.
Okay.
Whereas Oakwood, extremely white. Beaver Creek, a little less white than Oakwood, but still pretty.
I think
white.
with Beaver Creek is because of Wright State. I honestly believe that. I think if Wright State
wasn't there, in the base.
In the base. Yeah, in the base.
The military base.
Yeah.
And that's also why Beaver Creek's extremely conservative. Because of the base, the military presence, which I don't particularly like.
Your camera. Okay, your camera was freezing a little bit.
Oh, really? My bad.
Yeah. Come on, Connor, get your Wi-Fi together, man.
I got 4 bars. I got full bars.
No. Yeah, because you know what's crazy? I think I told you this, that I heard that Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was the Area 51 of that area. Like, heard some grave stories.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of chatter. I'm not saying there's not any truth to it, but it is a huge military base. It's a huge installation. Yeah. It's massive. A lot of jobs. A lot of secrecy. So who knows? I'm not sure, to be honest, but I know that there's a lot going on there for sure.
So that makes perfect. I think it makes sense now, because and this is my perspective. So when I first met Connor, like I said, he invited me into his home, and I went to the home, and I'm like, oh my God, like, this is a nice home. Coming from where I came from, I didn't grow up with,
a home, really.
We was always in apartments, and so I went to his house. I'm like, yo, he's getting, like, his parents got a nice house. They're changing out decorations seasonally. And I was like, oh, they this is it, so my perception was, oh, they must be wealthy. They have reached a pinnacle, so that was my mentality. And I guess I never, even though that was my mentality, when it came to you, from what I've experienced before in my past, I went to a mixed school in Princeton, but I experienced people who, like you said, they feel like they made it. They are above. They look down at us peasants. But when I met you, you weren't like that. Even in the midst of everything that was going on, it was just like, yo, yeah, cool, bro. Like, yeah, come stay in the basement. Yeah, we about to go do. It was just a feeling. So it makes sense you expressing your story, because, like, okay, you grew up it was like a working class. So you grew up in like working, and you saw your parents working and getting stuff done, and you were with people who maybe didn't have a lot of money or maybe didn't have the class, and so you was raised around that. So I guess that makes sense now. You explaining it.
Yeah, and like the best phrase I can use is like I saw both sides. Like I was rarely straddling the fence and like going back to what you just said about like how like my parents, they changed decorations for each season and all this stuff, and a lot of that came from my grandparents helping my parents.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because as I said, my grandpa that she remarried to was, he owned a business in Jersey and he was very successful, and he came in a generation of where he came of age in the 50s, which was, post World War II was like an economic boom.
Yeah.
So he just kind of, I don't want to say got lucky, but it kind of got lucky.
Yeah.
Because, you're born into a time and then you're lucky enough to have the opportunity to build wealth over time. And he's actually still alive today. He's 92 years old. So he's,
wow.
But it goes back to money. And there's a lot of systemic things that, rich people live longer than poor people, period. And that's America right there, because we have millions of people who are completely cut off from the health infrastructure of this country.
Yeah.
We don't have universal health care. We don't have universal parental leave like many developed countries do in the world.
Yeah.
We don't have the social safety nets in place. So when a pandemic hits and everything shuts down, not everything goes to shit. Excuse my language. Sorry.
No, hey, this is you can do what you want.
But this is what happens.
Yeah.
When you don't have those protections in place, when you let the 1% ravage the rest of the country to increase their profit share exponentially, and the citizenry, the many, so to speak, don't have any mechanisms of safety if the bottom falls out from under them, which it has, this is what you get.
Yeah. And I guess we're seeing it today. And the wealthy is getting more wealthy during this time. Which is crazy.
Absolutely.
So and we'll get to that. We're gonna hit on that. Do you have any questions for him or anything right now before I get to the next question?
I can say something, I guess. So do you so I don't know if you ever thought about this or really comprehending it, because I'm listening to what you're saying and you're speaking in terms of socioeconomic class. I've never thought of anything like that. I have only seen race for me. And I think, and I don't know if that's just because of how I grew up. My grandfather had multiple properties when he was alive, before he got sick and all of that. And they actually, in Cincinnati, there's an area called Coleraine. When my parents were growing up, it was predominantly all white. Like they never spoke of like class. They just spoke of, that was the white area. Like, and my mom, they were called, multiple names and all of that when they were growing up. And so just listening to you, I'm like, I've never it's and I don't want this to come off as offensive if it does, but it's a privilege for you to be able to think in class, because I've never thought about it I've never had that chance to.
And he did mention it too, that he said he was privileged to
think. And I love that you even recognize that, right? Because it's like, but like you said, you've seen it from both sides, so you're just kind of like, wow. The world is pretty.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
right? And so, and you're growing up in it's like we're all kind of growing up in the shadow of the 60s still.
Yeah.
Even in the 90s, because it never really got settled, like we can tell. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm stating the obvious here, but yeah. So
yeah.
And even if you're growing up in that shadow, and then everyone's on their own wavelength to an extent, as far as when they start perceiving that shadow, so to speak. You know what I mean? And I think for the vast majority of white people, it takes a lot longer to see that shadow, if ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the problem, because they don't have to look at the shadow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't have the privilege to not have to look.
Yeah.
Whereas as a black person or person of color, you don't have that privilege to not notice it.
Yeah.
That's a privilege in itself, right?
Yeah. And so that's why I guess, so when we met, for you, it's like you automatically understood, but we didn't have to talk. We never talked about anything that was deep, but I think we just understood. It was an underlining that was understood.
You were his white boy.
Oh my gosh.
I still call him. I still am like, you took something with Connor. We mentioned you on an episode a few episodes ago. I'm like, that's your white boy.
But since you saw both sides, you understand. But a lot, like you said, a lot of white people, Caucasians, I guess whatever is politically correct. A lot of
I don't
people,
think anything is politically correct at this point.
But a lot of people don't. A lot of white people don't see that. We go to a church that we have our small groups on Sunday, and we were talking about one of our service this past Sunday was about the bridge that needs to be basically connected between black people, white people, also racism in the church as well.
Just justice in general.
Yeah. And so in our small group, she was saying, I grew up in the South, where a Southern Baptist, which was like a denomination, but they praised God on one day, but then they was like, we don't want to be around blacks. Blacks are basically bad. That's how she grew up. It wasn't her fault. It was just where she grew up at. And as she got older, she went to school, and she had black friends, and they kind of told her what was real. And she was like, "Yo, that's not what I grew up as." Yeah. So some of it, I try not to be so judgmental and just immediately fly off the handle. I know some people have never had engagements with black people. Some people grew up in sides of towns where they grew their whole life was just all white, maybe a sprinkle of black in their school, but the sprinkle of black wasn't enough for them to understand the struggle or at all. Yeah. So I try not to be so judgment and so just cutthroat. Yeah. I try to understand, but then once I understand and I try to tell you what's real, and then if you still are in that same place, then we have an issue. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And, I understand you want to, and that's all. I think that's all black people want. We don't want. People have this mentality that we just want white people to just be, I don't know, like just gun ho. Let's go, which is great. Like we love it. Like we love when white people kind of join us in the fight. Like it's amazing. I told you we are greater together. But like some people say, I don't know what to do. Like I see what's going on TV and I don't know what to do. What do I do?
It's like we're just like we're the forgotten race, if you will. Like there are people of color and then there are black people. We're not the same, and it's hard for people to really comprehend.
Break that down. Let's tackle that. What does that mean? What's the difference between people of color and black people?
People of color to me is just like all colors and that can include, Asian, Hispanics, Middle Eastern, anybody, any people of color. Okay. In this country, black people are not considered, the same as people of color. Like we don't have the same privilege. There are believe it or not, Asians have way more privilege than black people here. Oh yeah. And it makes absolutely no sense when we were literally born here and built it,
Because that was a great point. Because I've never heard it like that. Where it was like,
we're not.
It was color, people of color and black. That's why I'm sorry to interrupt. But I thought that was good to kind of
and how white people are joining us, because it's like some white people. We live in Texas now, and there's a Nextdoor app, and so there's a Black Lives Matter protest that's happening in about 10 minutes, and. At a high school, and we live in an area where I don't know where black people are.
White and Mexicans.
I don't know where I literally that's the main reason I'm like, we need to get up out of here, because I don't see anybody that look like me anywhere, and I can't do it. Like I need at least one person. But anyway, right. So there were people on the Nextdoor app just so upset. They're just going to be looting and they're just, going to be stealing. And did they even get their papers for them to be able to protest? And I hope the police aren't, using all their time to cover that instead of looking for the people who are stealing. And it's like, you're not even understanding the purpose.
Yeah.
Like, and for us as Black people, some people are, when you don't have anywhere to put your frustration and you just are tired, not that I don't condone the stealing, but it's just like, what else you gonna do? Clearly we're not being heard. At Wright State, there was a girl that lived in Fairborn and she went to Wright State University. I can't remember her name. It was like Sarah, but it wasn't spelled like a regular way or something like that. Anyway, she was a freshman and she had told me, she's white, a cute little white girl. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't care. Because I went to a mixed high school. I could never make white friends, but I went to a mixed high school. So it was like, you don't bother me. She's just like, she told me one time when we were sitting at work, yeah, I've never seen Black people before until I came here.
Wow.
She lives a mile from Wright State University, where there are so many different cultures. But that's, I think that's also with parenting, right? You're intentional on making sure that your kids only see or are only around what you want them to see. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out.
About the stealing, I think that's, and this is not me downplaying, any of the brutality or the George Floyd or any of that. Yeah. That stands at the forefront. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as we know, with COVID-19 and all the economic fallout, I think that a lot of the looting is correlated more to that and the economic situation people are in. That's in the background of all the brutality aspect and the fact that this has been an ongoing nightmare of police relations in the Black community. It's crazy. But again, in the background, there's still this COVID-19 fallout and the economic reality. 40 million people plus have lost their job. So you have that going on, right?
Yeah.
And people don't have their basic needs met.
Yeah.
Right.
Food in some cases. I heard there was a bread line in Cleveland, over 10,000 people. Wow. They don't have enough food to eat. So you know what I mean? Because they lost their jobs, they don't have, and unemployment, it's so inundated that people aren't getting the money they need right now. So they need food.
Wow.
So you have all that going on.
I didn't even think of it like that, Connor. I've never even thought about it like that.
To me, it's all interrelated. To be honest, like, class is indistinguishable from it because it permeates everything, even the things we don't necessarily see. Because when you have a tiny cabal of people who dominate policy, they set the score, they set the tone. Not only in society, but through our representatives, where we think, oh, if we vote and we'll get someone in there, they'll change things, but it never happens. Why is that? Because that 1%, they're in the pocket of all those politicians. Yeah. They're the ones funding their campaigns. And until we get big money, big corporate money out of politics, that won't change.
Yeah.
It won't change. It won't be helping regular people. Yeah. And of course, and it goes back to the racial aspect, since Civil War, post-Civil War, Reconstruction era, Black people were kept down economically. They didn't want them to have power. They didn't want them to have property, which are the two pillars of capitalism. And that's a whole separate subset of how I feel about capitalism. However, not having property, not having any power, say-so voting rights for decades, and even to today, that sets a whole group of people back so much. It can't be overstated.
Yeah.
So to me, the economic reality is paramount to talk about in everything, because there's been so much systemic racism and just stacking the deck towards Black people in America for, really, you could say 2 lifetimes.
Yeah.
3 lifetimes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's.
It's not. We got to get down to business here as a country. we got to face ourselves in the mirror and be like, how the hell?
Thank you.
we keep going on this path because it's not working. It's not working. It never did work. America was never great.
Yeah.
It wasn't great for the many, I'll tell you that.
When did you first remember, like, I guess growing up in life, when you was like, oh, they treat that person differently
yeah,
than they treat?
Yeah. I think I would say, I mean, it came in stages. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, boom, here it is. You know what I mean? I didn't get like dummy smacked by it. It was like, the first time I perceived like, not like they were being treated different necessarily, but just the obvious, like, oh, we look different. Not that it's a bad thing, but you kind of, it's a little kid brain.
Yeah.
I think I was probably like I think I was in first grade.
Okay.
And I had a really good friend who was black in the class, and then the next year he wasn't there, and I was like, where'd he go?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was my friend. I played with him at recess. Yeah. His name was Anthony.
Wow, you should remember his name.
Yeah, I remember his first name, but I don't remember his last name.
But still, yeah.
And I just remember like racing, and we just had fun at recess, like we were just being kids. But that was like the first perception of it, I suppose. Just even on a very basic level.
Yeah.
And then the time I realized that, hey, this is not okay as far as the treatment, and like there's a double standard type thing going on. Obviously, I didn't know that phrase then, but I perceived it. This is like unfair, which was fourth grade.
Wow.
We got. I think there was. I mean, we had several people of different races in the class, but more people came. We had a bigger class that expanded, and there was one girl who was mixed, but she was very opinionated, and she was funny and demonstrative, and didn't bite her tongue for anyone, and I just remember her getting in trouble a lot, more so than she probably should have, by the school itself. And I was just like, what? I mean, they're doing it too, kind of thing, I don't know if I really chalked it up as race at first, but then my friend at the time going to school with kind of pointed it out, like, well, it's because she's loud, and she's not from here. That's what he kind of said, and I was
that's what that means back in the day. Like, she's not from here.
I was like, well, why does it matter? I was just kind of stupid, I guess, in a way. I was just like, why doesn't like innocent, but kind of stupid. Like, why does it matter? And like, just not fully perceiving it all, because I was still kind of, I was good intentioned kid, but it did take me a while to put everything together, I would say, for sure. In a well-meaning but gradual way, for sure. But one of my really good friends growing up, when it full came spectrum, was fifth grade, because one of my really good friends growing up, which her name was Alexa, which is the same name as my wife.
Wow.
And I still am in some contact with her. She's a really cool person, but she was mixed, and her mom was white and her dad was black. And I remember when I just heard parents off the cuff talking about it one time. I think they were drinking. I forget exactly what was going on. I just remember hearing like, oh, well, and I forget exactly what was said. I just know that it wasn't good. You know what I mean? And that's when it was like, okay, that's messed up.
Yeah. So
kind of gradual, I would say, for sure. Like like a puzzle that's getting pieces filled in as I go through life. But growing up at the school I did, it actually, I think outside of that instance, few instances like that, our class was real close. We all had a really good bond. And, as I said, the neighborhood I lived in was very diverse. So I had friends of different creeds and colors and all that kind of stuff. But once I got to high school, which I went to a Catholic high school. Okay. And it was people from all over the Dayton area. And so a lot of kids came from Beaver Creek or Xenia or Kettering in some cases, and that's when it really stood out.
Okay.
As far as racism, because you had kids that grew up in very white areas and but more affluent areas, more wealthy areas, and they had a lot of biases. And it kind of shocked me, and I kind of turned in. I was kind of shy in high school because of that, because like I didn't like a lot of people I went to school with.
Oh wow!
So I just kind of like put my head down, just did my thing, and because it was. I went to the same school my whole life up until high school.
Okay.
So I was used to that kind of family atmosphere, and I knew all the people at St. Peter. That's where I went. And then I went to Carroll High School, and it was like, oh, there's a lot of people I don't like here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like I can't be super self-serving here. It wasn't just it wasn't because of just race or because of just this. It was just the people in general, how they were, this mentality of superiority.
Yeah.
And really just boorish behavior. They're just a bunch of stupid white people, man. That's what it was. They're just like, they don't even know, like, they're in this bubble, It's a bubble, man.
It wasn't because of race, but they were stupid white people. That's literally what you just did.
No, I mean, it wasn't like the reason I didn't like all the people I went to school with, it wasn't just because of their attitudes towards race, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it was just their whole mentality really was, in my opinion, needed fixing, needed to grow up, because and they just had parents that had means and kind of, I think, kept them insulated in that bubble and kind of fed that superiority complex into their kids, you know what I mean? I would say like by junior high it was mostly apparent for me.
Okay.
But I had a very positive outlook on it, because I'm like, well, I have friends of all color, and we all get along, and everything's hunky-dory. And that's not really the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you want it to be that, of course. You know what I mean? Like, but it's not the case. And getting to high school was a rude awakening kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, there's a bunch of shitty fucking people.
Yeah.
Like, that was the long and short of it. High school taught me, if high school taught me any lesson at all, it was, wow, there's a lot of people I don't like.
Right.
So, a lot of people that scare me, in a way.
Wow.
That they can think that way. It's so distorted from what I'm used to.
Yeah.
I was a senior in high school, and I remember a black girl, she refused to stand for the pledge because she had a protest.
Yeah.
In the morning, and I wasn't in the room. I wasn't there. I just heard about it afterwards, and someone used the N-word.
Wow.
Yeah, of course it was a white person.
Of course, yeah.
And I was just like, and I heard about it, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
Like, it was just like one of those, just like, I gotta get out of here moments. Like, just like I was a senior, I was like, I can't wait to be out of here. And I think college, it'll be more liberal, it'll be better. No. That wasn't obviously always the case, or at best case scenario. I did have some good interactions with people there that were, more progressive minded, but by and large, again, it's in Wright State is in the shadow of Wright-Patterson, and it's a lot of conservative people. Yeah, and it just it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's not bubble effect. I really believe that.
So that's a perfect segue, because me and Tia were talking
from the Segway Master.
So me and Tia were talking. So I guess the question I want to ask you is, what do you classify yourself politically, and I guess a brief summary of your beliefs in that area.
Well, I have been, and since 2015, a big Bernie Sanders supporter.
Don't even get me. I'm sorry. It's gonna pitch. Don't even get me started on these people.
Let him,
let
him finish.
I love Bernie.
I think we all love Bernie, but go ahead.
I donated it to him since I first heard about him, which was the same time Trump. You started hearing about Trump, and it was the 2015 campaign trail, before the nominations were set for the 2016 election, and it was Bernie, Hillary, and then it was Trump and oh Lord, Ted Cruz, who's also a douchebag. But so I remember seeing Bernie and what he was saying, right? And I remember seeing Trump and what he was saying, and I'm just like, how is this guy still relevant? He's making fun of disabled people on stage. He's race baiting, and of course, we all know the story, but but at that point, people I went to high school with, people I went to college with, that were kind of millennial generation, frustrated by the economic prospects and getting a decent paying job. I think we were coming up on, we were 24, turning 25, and I think we kind of knew that this wasn't where we all wanted to be as far as like the job market. Because 08, 09, the financial crash, things still hadn't fully really gotten better for everyone.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, Bernie, man, he's the guy. Like, this guy is saying exactly what needs to happen. Like, it's an inclusive message, and it's a message that was a breath of fresh air. I mean, it immediately just like resonated with me so much.
Yeah.
And but then I brought up to my friends, like, he sounds like a socialist, and I'm like,
I hear that all the time. Like that's like the argument every time with people.
There's a long history of the Red Scare in this country. Red Scare meaning like the communist and the socialist. Oh God, where we're as close as we've ever been to authoritarianism right now with a fascist in the White House. So if they were scared, if the argument was, oh, we're scared of authoritarianism, well, look what we have.
Yeah,
this is what you wanted. What you got.
Here.
But a lot of those people, they love it.
Yeah,
they love Trump, and it's crazy. I can't. But
no, you're right. You go ahead, man.
And my friends at the time, they're like, I kind of like Trump. He's saying it how it is, and again, these were old friends from high school, and I want to preface it with saying that I was already feeling this pull away because I had just graduated, and a lot of those guys were still figuring it out. They hadn't, not that you graduate college you're immediately better, that's not what I'm saying, but they were still finding their direction, and they just never really grew up, in my opinion. But they're like, I kind of like Trump, and I was like, nah, that's it. That's it for me, guys.
Yeah,
that's all, folks. And so I literally haven't spoken to any of those people since January of 2016.
Wow.
So
T is the same way. See, I've been the you know me. I love everybody, Connor. You know my heart.
Yeah,
you know
you got a
me.
good heart.
Yeah, and so it's this one guy who I met at work, and we was cool. He was.
Are you talking about the?
Yes.
Freaking.
Let me finish. And so he's like avid Trump, and it's hard for me to even talk to him sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
On one level, we he's a Christian, right? And but at the same time, it's like, but you're still, it's weird because, and he likes WWE and all this other stuff that I like, but it's like you defend Trump at every turn. Like he can get up there and take his pants off and show his private part and his butt, and you would have an excuse on why he needed to do that. You'll be like, you know what? The sun that day was shining at the right angle, and the people out in the audience needed to see. Like, what are you talking about, bro?
They needed to see his butt.
Yeah.
But so that, I mean, it's just kind of in my opinion, Christianized fascism that the far right that support Trump have. That he's because Trump, as if you know Trump as a man and his background, he's not a religious person
at all.
I think no, everyone knows that. I mean, at least you should. Okay, so he and he doesn't care about anything outside of himself. He's a narcissist. Pure and simple.
Yeah.
So when you get a narcissist who has been privileged extraordinarily so his whole life, inherited millions of dollars, the whole gambit.
Yeah.
And has no real values or ideological, mechanisms. That ideological vacuum was filled with that Christian fascism that people wanted.
Wow.
A lot of white people wanted.
Do you believe when it comes to the ones who are wealthy, like Trump, because they identify with his silver spoon fed throughout his whole life, and they kind of
I actually think they don't like him as a person. They think he's kind of embarrassing and like crude and obnoxious, and but they'll put up with him because he makes taxes them less. They make more money.
I agree.
Pure dollar sign.
Yeah.
It's much more cynical than that. As far as it's because he's rich like us. No, they don't care, and that's kind of the mentality of rich people in this country in general. Like that I perceived at a younger age is that they don't care. They're cynical, man. They don't care about anything at all besides money and power, and the power is only good to ensure the money stays flowing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's all about money.
Yeah.
Literally. They could care about. They don't care about anything else. They really don't. Truly don't. They'll use anything as a mechanism to extract more money out of something. As a manipulation, or we donated this much, and then they write it all off on their taxes. I mean, you see these rich people that this charitable spirit, which is a bunch of bullshit. Okay, if you just paid your fair share in taxes, we wouldn't need your charity, and you could shut the fuck up. Because we don't want to see you.
I love Connor.
That is facts, man. That is facts. So, with for the viewers out there, Connor is an avid book reader. He reads all kinds of books. I don't. But for our viewers, can you let them know right now? Right now, what book you are reading currently? Just one book that you're reading currently that has your attention.
21st Century and Ideology.
Okay.
By Thomas Piketty. He's a French economist.
Okay.
It's a really good one. He specializes in inequality and the historical elements of how this came to be, where the top 1% of this country owns the same amount of wealth as the bottom 90%. How did that happen, right?
Yeah.
And since he's French, he looks at it more of a worldwide thing. But America is the perfect analogy for this because we are the most unequal society in the world, and we're also the richest. So what's crazy about America is you have people that are living like modern day kings, and then you have people that are living in third world country conditions in the same country. The disparity here is it can't be more vast, really. There are opposite ends of the global spectrum existing in one country. No other country has that disparity. It's either there's a lot of poor countries, don't get me wrong, but the countries that are developed, Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, they have a bottom level where they don't let their citizens crash through that bottom level. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas we do here.
Yeah.
We're just like, see ya.
Yeah.
In fact, they'll tie an anvil around your ankle so you just keep sinking.
Yeah. Go everybody go get that, because that's something that me and Tia is trying to like get on that. We are trying to get on that financial.
Right. Well,
and get more knowledge about that.
So a good place to start, really, because that book is like, I mean, I love it, and it's really informative, but it's also an economics book. So you might get this like textbook vibe. And you're like, I don't know about this. So it's definitely like not something that I can just sit through and be like, oh man, I'm gonna knock out half this book in one sitting. No, it's not. It's a very slow going book. But Chris Hedges, its author, he is a writer. He was a former war correspondent for the New York Times for 20 years. He was in the former Yugoslavia in the 80s. He saw it fall. He saw the Berlin Wall fall. I mean, he's been there throughout history. He's perceived a lot of mechanisms that have shaped what we see the world as is today. Right. So he's written several books, and any one of his books are fantastic. And I feel like they move quick. They're accessible and they're informative, but they also grab your attention because he has a really great knack of getting to the bullshit that pisses people off. And when you get pissed off, you want to know more. You're like, and you're like, what the hell? So I would say Wages of Rebellion is a good one by him. And his most recent work is America, the Farewell Tour.
Wow, that's a nice little.
Which is a powerful title.
Yeah.
But, so say his name one more time.
Chris Hedges.
Chris Hedges. Okay, so as we're starting to get towards the end of the this great episode, I do want to get your view. I guess my next question is, what is your view on the
state of the country?
The state of the country when it comes to a lot of the black people, from black women, black men getting killed by police. Your view on it, your reaction to George Floyd, right? George Floyd, and what advice would you give other white people on how to join, how to support, how to understand going forth with this?
Yeah. So first about white people is it's not about you. That's the first thing. It's not about you.
Connor.
Say it. Go ahead. You can your floor, guys.
I mean, I want to give a long pause on that because it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about you. That's white people. So first and foremost, shut up and listen.
I'm listening. We listening. Go ahead.
I mean, it's your floor. I mean, it's just kind of sad that people can't do that because it's not that hard. I don't think it's that hard. As far as just set your own whatever biases or whatever, just set your own inhibitions down for a second and just listen to people that are telling you something, their experiences. Because if you can be a great listener, that's the biggest part, I think, of the battle itself. Is really, and I mean really listening. I don't mean like in one ear out the other, of course. Yeah. But as far as my reaction to all the killings, Ahmaud, George Floyd, it's sickening, is what it is. It's nauseating, and it feels like a nightmare because it keeps happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what we've done isn't working. I think I'm stating the obvious. I don't think I'm breaking any ground by saying that. So the policing model is broken. Yeah. The police in this country, the system, needs a complete overhaul. There needs to be transparency in the community. Mm-hmm. For instance, I mean, we have more transparency with our damn Uber drivers than we do about the police with guns in our neighborhoods. We got a review on the Uber driver. Well, what about the cop that has a gun? I don't know. Is he a piece of shit? I don't know. So that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Why is everything internal in the police department? They cover up, this guy has 18 infractions. He's been correlated with 3 on-the-job deaths or what? All these things. There needs to be transparency there, and there needs to be community oversight, not politics. The politicians should have no bearing on local community oversight because at the end of the day, people are what makes a community, not the politicians. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And there needs to be oversight within the community. Like, we can't just have cops running wild like they are right now they don't answer to anyone, it seems, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they just can kill, bully, use any sort of violence they want with seeming impunity.
Yeah.
And that needs to stop because the policing model is broken, as I said. And I'm just scratching the surface with things that can be done, but it is a completely broken system. The American justice system, can't even call it that. It's broken.
Yeah,
it's broken. The prison system, the prison industrial complex, how they make money off people in jail, disproportionately black people in jail. I mean, it's a sick, twisted system that really drives the knife into people for profits, and that's what it's about. When you take in a country like we have, right, that has no social safety net, that lets people fall through the bottom of poverty, and if, say, you're on a social program, food stamps, what have you, in the eyes of our capitalist oligarchic elite, they're draining money. They cost money, right? Whereas in our current model, if someone's in jail, they can make about $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 off of you a year.
Wow.
They put you in a cage, then they can make money off you. Everything in the prison's privatized. The phone lines, the food, everything costs money out of the prisoner's pocket. So you're paying for your own supposed rights and freedoms, relative freedoms within the prison system itself. It's ridiculous. And this is what happens when profit motives supersede everything in a society, including people's lives itself. And it needs to stop. It needs to change. We need a complete overhaul. But those things come to mind first, But again, white people, just shut up. Shut up and listen for a second. And but seriously though, like, it doesn't, just listen to people's experience, because your experience obviously is much different. Okay. And that's okay as long as you're receptive to people's experiences and their stories, and you're proactive and are an ally in the struggle for justice and equality and for fairness and a better society in general, not just with regards to police, but with economics as well. And this just grotesque inequality that has really ravaged this country for the last 4 decades. I blame Reagan for one, by the way.
Oh,
don't even.
Oh, hate him. Hate him.
Hate him.
Hate him. I saw his
love
grave.
you. Like,
he started it. Started it right there.
He did. Oh, it's Reagan. I mean, going back to working class rich real quick, my grandpa, part of a union paying job, lost his job in 81. Year after Reagan was elected. So
wow.
It's
Wow. Well, Connor, thank you first for coming on with us.
Absolutely. Fun, man.
This was very insightful. I'm hoping that the viewers out there really got something out of this, because it was a lot of information, and we just scratched the surface of the information.
Literally,
if you really, I hope that you got something out of this. It was
definitely
really,
I think
really
having
insightful.
Conversations like this is democracy in action. I think.
Yes.
People talking and communicating, and I think obviously we agree on a lot of things beforehand, regardless. But even so, it's good to exchange ideas and perspectives and just touch base, with the people you care about. For sure.
Yeah. So that's awesome, man. It's awesome. So we appreciate you. So
it's time for
So kind of as the guest, you can go ahead and go first. What is your lately?
Okay. Well, there's a documentary on the book of the 21st century, Capital in the 21st Century, I think the documentary is called. And it's truly wonderful. I watched it like 3 times.
Is it on Hulu or Netflix, or where's it on?
I don't know. I watched it through this app that it was, since COVID, all the art theaters are shut down, right?
Yeah.
So it was helping give business to the art theaters.
Okay.
So it was through that, and I forget, and I can send it to you guys. I apologize. I don't know it offhand.
Also, yeah, definitely send it to us so we can like post the link.
Now, I think it was called Kino Now.
Okay.
Kino Now.
Okay.
Kind of odd, but at any rate, so that was really good. And also just a quick one on Netflix, The Untold History of the United States documentary series. Oliver Stone directed it, wrote it.
Okay.
Really great on Netflix.
Okay. Okay. My lately for this episode will have to be a song. It's gonna be a song for me because I'm musical. The song that I really been, it's so crazy because I don't know how to pronounce this group, but their song is called maybe Connor can help me. I think, I don't know. So the song is called "Think About Things."
Okay.
Think about
things, and this how you spell it is their name is like Daði Freyr. The last name, Connor, is Freyr.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Freyr, okay. So like, and Daði, it's like it looks like they're Russian or Dutch or something like that. That's what it's like. But the song, I've been playing it on repeat. I've been playing the song on repeat because it's like,
what genre is it? Is it like?
It is pop.
Okay, pop. Okay.
It's pop, and it's called "Think About Things." When I tell you I've been playing, like I said, playing on repeat. It's a dope song, dope bass line. Check it out. I think you'll like it, Connor. I think you'll like it. It's pretty dope.
I'll take it.
Okay, so mine is a movie that I've been continually watching with my son that we love so much. Zootopia.
Okay, I've seen it.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, you need to watch it.
It's a lot of undertones in there.
Absolutely. No, that's a good one. I love it.
I literally was just like, we are living in Zootopia right now. But I hope that it ends, how positive Zootopia ends, even though it doesn't seem like that right now.
Yeah.
Right, not reality right now.
Right.
Facts. So that's yours?
Yeah, that's
all right.
Cool.
So before I gotta shut up. Okay. Before we get to that, like I said, we're gonna give a smidget. What do you think of this year for our boys? What we doing this year? If we have a year, if we have a year.
So, assuming we have a year,
okay.
I like it, man. I liked our draft.
I like it.
I did. I don't want to be negative.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Be real.
I think a lot of it is predicated upon Jonah Williams being the guy at left tackle. We need him to be the guy.
Yes.
Jonah, if you see this, please. We were burned tackles, Jake Fisher and Abuehi.
Yeah.
No ill will towards you guys, but y'all were trash.
Hot garbage.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Yeah, that's the only that is my only thing is the offensive line. I really think they should go after Larry Warford. I think that would solidify that guard position because I am not sold on Xavier Sudafulo, not sold on Billy Price. I'm kind of sold on Michael Jordan. But outside of that, I think the linebackers are going to learn and get better and better. They're going to be great. I think the secondary is going to be good. I think bringing in Von Bell frees up Jesse Bates a whole lot. Jesse can actually do what he's supposed to do. I think it's going to be great. I think the DJ Reader signing was underrated. I think it's going to revitalize Geno Atkins. And I believe Joe Burrow's going to come in and be solid. I really do. And it's not just because of the hype. Like it took me a while to even get on the Joe Burrow train, first of all. And shout out to Joe Burrow because he also pointed out, hey, basically, y'all need to listen to black people because there's some stuff going on. Shout out to my quarterback.
He's an Ohio boy, so I'm rooting for him big time. I like Joe. Yeah. I think we could have a good season. I think that it could be like 2011 where we take people by surprise when we drafted Dalton and Green and all that, and we made a surprise run.
9, 7, 8, like that range. I think that would be a great overhaul.
In 2011, we went 9-7, stuck into the playoffs. Saying there's a chance.
So that's all we got to say. See, that was quick too. It wasn't long. We could go deeper, but that's what we're gonna get it right there. There we go.
we have self-control
here. We have to shout out fellow podcasts real quick. Go ahead, Tia.
Yeah, so these are their Twitter handles, y'all. Make sure y'all go check them out. Podcast ADC at HOAH Podcast, at Real AKA Truth Pod, at RU, the little R, the letter U _ podcast, at Suburban Folk, at the number 3 P's up in a pod, at Raw Sex Podcast 1, at ITWDI Podcast. I'm sorry, I'm just reading this off the thing. At Scarlet Podcast, at Two Studs in a Pod, and and also follow Pod All the Time PN. That is just a network that we're a part of. So just go check out all those podcasts, you guys, and let us know what you think.
Let us know what you think. Again, follow. Go ahead and say our where they can follow us.
Oh, you can like our page on Facebook, The Heart Talk Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at The Heart Talkers. You can follow our Instagram, The Heart Talk Podcast. You can email us, thehearttalkpodcast@gmail.com. and at gmail.com, if I didn't say that clearly. And you can also go to Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, Apple, Google, Podbean, and you can just go follow our podcast and stream us on. We're just the Heart Talk on there.
And if you want to invest in our podcast,
you can do that
our
on
Cash App
Podbean.
handle.
Oh.
You doing Podbean?
You can do it on Podbean.
Okay, go ahead.
You can do that on Podbean, thehearttalk.podbean.com.
And if you don't want to do all that, our Cash App is bdan08 $. So again, we want to thank Connor for being a part of the Heart Talk podcast. He was our first guest, and he would not be the last.
He broke our cherry.
Lord Jesus. He was our first guest, and he will not be our last. We got a lot of coming up soon, so please follow us. Thank you, Connor, for joining us. Thank you, everybody who was watching, for joining us, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Be on the lookout for more content, great content coming soon. So thank you. Peace.
Bye.